I would like to begin by acknowledging the traditional custodians of Australia and their connections to land, sea, sky, and community. I pay my respects to elders past, present, and emerging, and I extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples listening today.
Hello, my love, and welcome to the April and Fritz podcast. If you are new around here, my name is Bree, and I'm a floral designer and business owner at April and Fritz, based here in Melbourne, Australia. If you're a regular, welcome back. I'm so happy that you're here. And I've decided to do something a little bit different today. Usually I record in my little studio, and I usually record videos with my little podcast. So, you can see me and my guests as we're kind of talking through different topics. So you can kind of put faces to names and see our facial expressions and all of that kind of thing. But today I just kind of felt called to do something a little bit different. I'm currently sitting in my living room in my trackies, no makeup on, an incense burning, and I just thought I would kind of riff a little bit. I usually show up to my podcast very prepared. I like to have my notes. It's all very well structured. I do my research and I'm ready and all of that kind of thing. So I can really kind of speak to kind of what's happening in the industry quite confidently, I suppose. But sometimes, you just got to chill out and just let the perfectionism go. And so that's what I'm kind of doing today. And you may be able to hear cars in the background. That's literally just, the road out the front. There may be birds chirping in my front yard. But I think that, this whole perfectionism thing is really relevant in the context of the conversation today, because I'm going to be talking about the imperfection of events and event planning today. Because I think the truth is that sometimes event planning can just kind of suck. It can be really hard. It can be really overwhelming. And the reason why I bring this up today is because, as some of you may have heard in earlier episodes, my father-in-law is currently quite unwell. And, he was recently in hospital for pneumonia, and it's been a really hard time on all of us as a family. And I guess why that's relevant is because my sister-in-law is currently planning her wedding, and honestly, it's just been so hard on her and her fiance and, just as a family, to be honest. And she's really trying to figure it all out, and if and when things will happen, like bridal showers and hens parties, and whether or not she should lock in vendors and all of these kind of things, which is obviously just kind of causing a lot of anxiety. And I think, the father-in-law thing is still pretty raw. So I'm going to kind of hopefully be able to get through this conversation today. But I think separate to that, I also had a conversation with a client of mine over Instagram DMs, just kind of checked in and asked how she was going and that sort of thing. And I asked her, how is the planning going? And she was kind of explaining to me that, she was just kind of really overwhelmed and pretty much just over it. So many decisions needed to be made, family were overstepping, and she just didn't really feel like things were kind of running smoothly, I suppose. And again, like, that was just kind of causing her a lot of stress and anxiety. And yeah, and so I guess today I just kind of thought I'm going to give you the pep talk that maybe you didn't even know that you needed, because sometimes events and event planning just kind of sucks. So I want to talk to the idea that event planning and events aren't always, sunshine and rainbows. Maybe you're, a couple trying to organize your wedding and family keeps getting in the way. Or maybe you're an event manager trying to kind of organize the best corporate event that you can, and now your budget has been cut in half. Or maybe you're just organizing your birthday and suddenly 50% of the people drop off at the last minute. And if this is you, like, I see you and I feel you and I'm thinking of you and I'm holding you through it, because it can be really, really hard. And yeah, I guess with that, I just kind of want to say that, I'm so grateful for you being here and kind of listening to this podcast and allowing me to kind of talk on this topic. I'm incredibly grateful to you. And so let's just start by saying that, yes, we know that, I guess, events are achievable, right? The dream scenario is that, it's all smooth sailing the whole way. You get everything you want. Everything's in budget. Everyone is super supportive. And, you have your dream vendors and it all just feels incredible and flowy and amazing. Like you just get everything that you want. And that's amazing. The reality is that we're not kind of putting a man on the moon or curing cancer or any of those things, but it can also still feel really, really hard. And especially if it's not something that you do very often or if ever, potentially, it can come with so many different emotions and stresses. And to be honest with you, I think I would be lying if I said that I haven't been there. There's been times where I've been stressed out or overwhelmed or, not really coping in the early days of my business. Event planning specifically really kind of requires you to put the building blocks down and lay the foundation for your perfect event. It's an accumulative process. And so maybe you have a bit of a blueprint that you're working to. You kind of start locking in your vendors, and all of a sudden your vendors are requiring a lot from you and you're trying to work to a budget, but the budget's been blown. Countless decisions and details kind of need to be considered along the way. And sometimes, as if that wasn't stressful enough, maybe like there's something that then comes up and it's just really hard for you to continue, or people maybe interfere, or it gets overwhelming, or whatever it is for you. And then, we even have just the event day itself. I think, I kind of think of event days as a bit of a dance, specifically, I don't know, the ballet maybe. You've got the choreography, you've got the lighting, you've got the partner, you've got the backup dancers, you've got the music, and all of these pieces kind of working together to give you the illusion that everything is perfect, to give you the perfect show. And that's a lot of pressure, to be honest. But here's the thing, for something like the ballet, the dancers work on that show, rehearsing for months and months and months, bringing together all of these elements before it gets taken to the public. On the other hand, with an event, we only have one day, and there's very rarely a rehearsal where every single component is put together before the big day itself. So it almost feels inevitable that something should go wrong because there are just so many components that need to align to give you that illusion of perfection, I suppose. And I guess then the question really does become, what do you do when things aren't going so well? Like, there is so much room for things to go wrong. So what do you do when things are not going well, whether it be the lead up or on the day of the event? Whether you are organizing your event yourself or you have a team of people who are supporting you and things are getting hard, I just kind of wanted to, I guess, share some of the things that I like to remind myself of when things are getting particularly hard, or when I'm working with clients and things are getting particularly hard for them. I wouldn't say that, I've necessarily perfected all of these things myself, but I think these are just good reminders to kind of come back to time and time again when the wheels maybe feel like they're falling off a little bit. So this is kind of what I like to do. And I guess first and foremost, what I can say is lean on your vendors. Let me start by saying that even if you have help from family or friends or whoever, nobody cares about the success of your event as much as what you do, apart from your vendor team. Your vendor team are the ones who are pining for the success of your event, and they're trying to make the best of this situation and take the pressure off of you to give you the perfect event with the least amount of stress. So I think the reality is that if everyone was willing and able and wanting to do this kind of work, then vendors wouldn't exist. So lean on them for support. I definitely feel like when there's been instances where my clients are being, maybe a little bit vulnerable with me and are maybe kind of communicating about how things maybe aren't going to plan or they're stressed out or whatever, I find this incredibly strong of them, to be honest. I kind of think about event planning and events like anything else in life. It's okay to ask for help. And in particular, your vendor team will be there to support you every step of the way. It's not just a transaction. We are the ones who are committed beyond anyone or anything else to your perfect event. So I guess just to kind of start with, I really want to encourage you to share where you're at with your vendors and allow them to help you in any way they can, if they can. With that said, though, I do think, one of the reminders that I do have to constantly remind myself of and do kind of remind my my beautiful clients of is that sometimes things happen and you just have to let it go. In this kind of work, we're human. There's always going to be room for human error. And with that as well, I think on the opposite side, there is so much resilience and creativity that comes into this space. And so I really do feel as though, when event planning and executing, that resilience and that creativity is really necessary. There are just times where things are just outside of our control. Like I was once freelancing for this gorgeous florist on a wedding who had honestly just done everything right. But it was a 40 plus degree day here, actually outside of Melbourne. And we were outside setting up the ceremony and the flowers were just like melting before our very eyes. And guests were arriving and it was a whole thing. But the reality is, like, they wanted to get married outside. Nobody can help a 40-degree day. It is kind of what it is. And like, there's only so much that you can do in that situation. Another time I was kind of freelancing and this couple just really wanted to get married up on the hill next to their venue. And that's like where their reception was. And just as the ceremony started, this storm rolled through. And it was like not just any storm, it was this torrential downpour. Like I had never seen rain like it, honestly. And it almost felt tropical. So it was really, really bizarre for Melbourne. But anyway, every single person on that hill got saturated. Like the celebrant couldn't, use their microphone because of the rain. And again, it was just like a whole thing. So at the end of the day, though, like, it's rain. It wasn't predicted. Sometimes it's not perfect. And I think, you should always have a backup plan, whether you have a 40-degree day or torrential rain or whatever it may be. But that's a different podcast episode. But, even recently I was up at like 4 a.m. and I was packing the car, full ready to go for the wedding that day. And I was all done and got in the car to get going and tried to turn on the car and the battery had died. So I just had to go and get another car and repack it all and head off. And like, yeah, like I was late. It didn't impact the day, but it's just like I could have held on to that and let it ruin the entire day, or, take that and just let it go. So, those are just a couple of examples from the day of events. And there's probably a million more where, from the planning point of view that I could kind of talk to. But my point is, while we are always, contingency planning, sometimes things truly are just outside of our control. And so I really wanted to encourage you to think about whether what's happening in that moment is something that you have control over. And if it's not, like, we have to let it go. And trust me when I say that I know that that's easier said than done, which actually kind of leads me to my next point, which is that, again, I am a perfectionist by nature. And so I know how hard it can be to let things go. I can understand how hard it can be to see things not going to plan or not being perfect or whatever it may be and try and let it go. But the truth is, perfection really is in the eye of the beholder. there have been so many times where I've created something. It could have been, an installation or a bouquet or whatever, and it could be 99% perfect, but I just, can't let the 1% go. And I look at it and I just want to keep going at it and going at it until it hits that 100% in, my opinion or my view. Yet then I'll have somebody who will walk past and just be like, oh my God, it's so beautiful. It's perfect. And they're none the wiser to the amount of time and energy that I've just spent on trying to get that 1% perfect. So, that perfection piece really is in the eye of the beholder. And so I do think that there has to come a point where the amount of time and energy that you're working on something just doesn't make sense anymore for you to benefit from it. Or the benefit that you get back is not going to be worth the investment of time and energy or whatever else that you've put into it. So if there is something holding you back, what I always say to my clients is it the 1%? Is it something that is going to make the biggest difference to you on the day? If it is the 1%, again, let's let it go. And lastly, I just always try to remind myself of the goal of the event. Is the goal of the event to get married if it's a wedding? Is the goal of the event to have all of your favorite customers in the room if it's a corporate event? Is the goal just to have fun if it's your birthday? What is the goal? I think if we take a step back and really think about why you're hosting this event or running this event, in the first place, I can nearly always guarantee that your event has been successful, because a successful event is what you make it. So if it's a wedding, like I said, and maybe the menus aren't 100% correct, or the ceremony doesn't start on time because you were stuck in traffic, or whatever it is, what's the goal? The goal of the day is to marry the love of your life. And if that's happened, your day has been successful. So sometimes I really do think that it's all about just reframing it in how we think about these things. And, I just want to say that if you're going through it right now, again, whether you're event planning or on the event day and you're listening to this podcast and it's been a shocker, I see you, I hear you, I feel you, and I'm here for you. And just thank you again for joining me on this episode. Again, I'm just so grateful to have you here. And as you know, we are a really small team here on the podcast, and we're always working on ways to improve it. So, I have done something a little bit different today and just kind of done a bit of a riff. So please leave a rating and a review so we know how this is all kind of landing for you. Otherwise, I will see you at the same time, same place next week.